Okay, so we're gonna start getting the car torn down for the fuel rail install. And I happen to be lucky the car's cold and has been sitting for a few days, so I know there's no pressure in the rail. So what I'm gonna do now is whatever gas is in the lines, I'm gonna burn that up. What you don't wanna do is unplug the DME relay, because that's also gonna take away your spark. So you just wanna take out this 15 amp fuse at position 34. And that will be the fuel pump fuse. So we want to keep spark, but we want to take out the fuel pump fuse. So now we'll start the car. It's not going to run for very long. It's just going to burn whatever's in the lines, if it even starts. Yeah, nothing. So, okay. Alrighty. The next thing that we're going to do is unplug the batteries so we can take out the fuel rail. So now that the battery's disconnected, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this 10 millimeter bolt for the cruise control, and that will give me a little bit more give. And then I'm going to start removing the vacuum lines from the regulator and the damper. And I think one of the most delicate things that you really want to be careful with is removing those clips and unplugging the fuel injectors. So once we have a little bit more of this stuff out of the way, we should be able to go from there. A quick mental note: the line on this side is for the regulator. So this line is for the regulator, and this line is for the damper. Okay, so one quick little tip that I wanted to make for you guys was, these are going to be hard to get off, especially if they aren't on and off all the time. And so your natural human instinct is going to be to want to yank here. Don't do that. Whenever you pull these off, you want to pull them off from the body of the plastic connector. When you do this, you risk pulling the pins out or pulling the wires out or doing something else, and it's going to add a lot of headache to you. So what you can do is you can take a little pick tool and just pry these metal retaining clips out of the way until it kind of clicks into the injector. Or you can pry those out of the way and very carefully just pull these out one by one. It should just come right out. And just be careful not to lose these little retaining clips. Don't want to drop that in the engine bay or anything. So, and for this side, get a rag or some towels or something and loosen this line up, because there's no way that this is coming out through there. So just loosen that line up, get this out of the way, and then you can, what I used to do on the other car is just lay this completely this way. The hood's not getting closed, so I'm gonna get this up out of the way. And now we've got more room to work with here. So once you've got your injector harness out of the way, now a lot of people take these off on the car, but to save yourself some time, the rail's only held down with 4 bolts. You can just, and kind of save yourself some of a mess too, if you can disconnect these lines, that's perfect. And just make sure that these are freed up with the rails so that there's no hoses or vacuum lines tied up to the damper over there, or the regulator over there, and the damper up here. And also, if these are in good shape, you want to preserve them. So if anybody needs a fuel pressure damper, let me know. I'll sell it to you for half what they cost to replace. The only thing that you want to be careful with here is with your spark plug wires, disconnecting some lines slowly. You want to have some catch rags that you're planning on throwing away. But once you do that, just for advice sake, when you're loosening this line, this nut right here is a 24 millimeter, and everything else is a 19. This is a 19, 19, and 19. So, okay, after that, it's just 4 10 millimeter bolts. last one is up there. You can see that one's all soaked with gas, which is why we're doing this in the first place. So pop those 4 bolts out. Now, in regards to the injectors, leave those clips in, because when you undo these 4 bolts, you'll be able to slide the entire rail up with the injector still installed, and that should also help make sure that it should give you an easier time without any seals being left in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then you'll catch me with the old rail on the bench. These are out, we can inspect them. And yeah, this guy's pretty bad. So we'll get these all cleaned up. And while you're in there, you want to cover the injector holes. I just use a little bit of masking tape. You don't want anything falling down in there, obviously, because it's a cylinder. And I'm going to clean up some of this junk that I have easy access to now. Remember, you just probably spilled gas a couple places, so don't go in here right away with a wire wheel or something. Just, you know, maybe some sandpaper or whatever, some light sandpaper to buff out some of this aluminum here. Clean some of this up, make it look nice and pretty. And then the next steps, we can start getting more ready for the rail install. So there's a couple things that you can do in the meantime. Break this wheel, get this cover out ready to go for the Lindsey kit. We're also going to pull out each of these injectors, clean them up, and we're going to reseal them. Now, I'm not going to send them off to get them tested or anything like that, because in the future I'm planning on swapping out my fuel rail for a different color, and more on that towards the end of the video. But for now, I'm just going to throw that seal kit on there, and this thing should be ready to go. Okay, so the next step here is we're going to remove this inner fender liner, and this thing is filthy, so I at some point need to come through and pressure wash all this. But for now, if it looks like it's obvious where stuff should go, it is. Okay, so next step is removing this inner fender liner, and a couple bolts right here, one on the bottom, one right there, and another one up here. They're all 10mm, but they're all different sizes, so that's fun. And I should have taken a picture to see which ones go where. This one is obvious where it goes, but these other two, if I had to guess, that one goes there, the other one goes there. So I'm just gonna keep going. New rail just showed up. Let's talk about what you get. So this is the fuel rail itself. It's made out of billet aluminum. Has adjustable feet on here, but as far as I can tell, they're pretty close. There's the fuel rail, or the fuel injector ports, I guess. This is the side that faces out. It feels like a chunk of metal, that's for sure. And then this is what else you get in the kit. So these are the compression fittings that you're going to install onto the hard lines here. These two lines I'll have to measure and cut. Now, unfortunately, the lines that I ordered had to be drop shipped, so I can't really do any cutting or measuring at the time, but I can at least get this rail built, ready to go in the car. Now, this is the adapter that allows you to use the stock Bosch regulator. You can also put an adjustable fuel pressure regulator on here for 951 guys that are tuning. And this is the Marion fuel damper. So this is the this is kind of the other thing that sold me on this rail for cheaper than a Porsche rail, is that, again, like I was saying, these regulators, man, or these dampers, when the damper goes, it's like an impossible part to find, and it's as expensive as this whole kit was. So whereas the Marions are widely available, and yeah. So let's talk about fittings real quick. So as far as like taping and Teflon tape, whenever you're using compression fittings, you don't want to use Teflon tape. So I'm assuming that means for the fuel lines themselves, the high pressure lines themselves. He said that anytime that there's a barbed fitting, so I think the only place where any sort of tape might be appropriate is going to be this T right here, where these are just regular threads, they're not barbed. But instead of using Teflon tape, I'll go use that, I believe it's called Gasola or whatever. It's basically thread sealer, but meant for gasoline. So that way, because Teflon tape, if you use it, the ethanol will break it down and then it'll gum up your injectors. So I guess that'll be the move. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I still need to clean up the engine bay and the top of the cam tower, and then I'll start assembling this rail. Okay, sit rep. Let's talk about the fuel rail install and where I'm at for tonight. Unfortunately, I can't continue any further for reasons that we'll dive into. So first off, let's talk about the rail real fast, because I really want to get this in this video. This thing is not just bolt up and it works. Maybe if you have an early car, sure, but the wiring loom, which is that ribbed rubber hose back there, actually interferes with the damper, so much so that you can't bolt this down. And you might think, well, you can just adjust the feet or whatever and slide the rail itself forward. You can't do that, because the injector holes will then be askew between the relationship of the rail and the intake. So that took a lot of finagling. That took a long time to mess with. So heads up, don't mess with the adjustment on the feet. Leave them the way that they are. And the next thing I want to talk about is these connections are so tight. They are so unbelievably tight. Like, at least maybe, if I had to guess, a minimum of 60 foot-pounds of torque on there. Like, I was bending the feet trying to wrench those on there to get it into a position, A, where it was tight, but B, where everything would sit pretty and line up. So I got them as tight as it would go, and they will not go on any tighter. So I really doubt that anything is going to leak out of there. Again, so you'll have a regular hose fitting here, and we'll have the AN fittings here, and those will be replacing these two lines. So the damper and the regulator install are taken care of. Those are done and tight. I replaced the seal on here. You might as well, if your fuel injector kit comes with one. It's the same size. This is nice because there's a set screw on there, so you can change the angle. I just have it flush. I've already closed the hood, and it works. I'm not going to demonstrate that now, but just know that it does work. I'm not looking for... So another thing that I want to talk about is I wanted the red rail. So it would have been the same anodization color as the damper back there. I just think the red would have looked really cool with the blue wires and kind of give the engine bay a little bit of pop. But the black is fine for right now. But eventually, whenever the red rails come in stock, I'll be ordering one of those. So that means that this rail won't be needed. So my idea is maybe as like a little bit of a thank you. I can't exactly afford to give it away, because even the rails by themselves are $200. But maybe as we're almost at 500 subscribers or whatever. Rather than doing a giveaway, maybe I'll do a subscriber sale event. So if any of you guys out there are interested in this, then I'll give you a good deal on it. But you have to be a subscriber to get that deal. So I think that's a good way to end for today. There's not really much else I can do. Oh, you'll need to, one other thing over here. You'll need to adjust your vacuum lines and probably go pick up some more vacuum tubing to connect back to here, just because everything that I have, even the spares that broke, it's just not long enough. So just something to keep in mind. You do not need a vacuum fitting for here, which is interesting to me, but what do I know? So that's all done for now. I was going to install the injectors. You can see I was over here rebuilding them. Got 3 of them down, and number 4. Oh, come on, focus. Yeah, you can see that there. There's no nozzle in that one. So that sucks. But again, even if I had these anyways, I wouldn't have been able to finish the install tonight. I was hoping to get the top end done so that all I'd have to worry about is measuring those lines and cutting them. But so that will be part 2 of the install. I'm going to edit all the clips that I took today into one whole shebang, and then you'll be able to follow along from the beginning. So I'm actually going to post this ending clip at the beginning of the video. It'll be weird, but it'll all make sense. So anyways, Lindsey Racing fuel rail. My verdict so far is that for the price that it costs, there's a couple other things I'd like to see. For example, like just throw in some new hardware, you know what I mean, for bolting to the cam tower in the block. And that's probably it. Maybe just throw in, I don't even know about maybe extra seals or something like that, just for that regulator up there, so you're not having to order another one. And instructions would be awesome, because man, it's kind of tough figuring it out going along where it's like not fitting and you don't want to strip anything and all that stuff, but it looks solid now. So anyways, thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll see you in part 2.